Turn off your phone, flip the light switch on the wall, and stare into the corners of your room. In our modern world, we have completely obliterated the night. With a flick of a finger, we can command artificial suns to light up our streets, our living rooms, and our digital screens. For us, darkness is just an optional setting. But 50,000 years ago, when the sun dipped below the horizon, the world didn't just get dark. It became a predatory meat grinder. The prehistoric night was a terrifying, absolute expanse of pitch-black shadow. The moment twilight faded, humans lost their absolute best evolutionary weapon, their daytime high-resolution vision. Meanwhile, every single apex predator that viewed humans as an easy, slow-moving snack, from saber-toothed cats to massive cave hyenas, suddenly gained total tactical dominance. The night was a hunting ground, and we were on the menu. For centuries, modern historians operating under a survival-of-the-fittest bias assumed that the moment night fell, ancient humans simply crawled deep into the recesses of their caves, huddled together in sheer, paralyzed terror, and slept an unbroken, dead-to-the-world 8 hours until the sun rescued them. But groundbreaking architectural studies, anthropological field research, and cognitive archaeology have revealed a completely different reality. The night wasn't just a period of blank, terrified waiting. It was a masterclass in structural engineering, behavioral ecology, and community coordination. It was when early humans were at their most creative, their most social, and their most profoundly human. It was during the dark hours that our ancestors truly invented human culture. The myth of the unbroken 8-hour sleep. Before we look at how they survived, we have to kill the modern concept of sleep. We live in a society obsessed with the 8-hour block. We think that if we wake up at 2:00 a.m. and can't fall back asleep immediately, we suffer from insomnia. But an unbroken 8-hour sleep cycle is a completely unnatural artifact of the Industrial Revolution, born when factories needed masses of workers to operate on rigid, predictable daylight shifts. Before light bulbs and time clocks, human biology operated on what sleep researchers call biphasic or segmented sleep. Ancient humans didn't sleep in one massive block. Instead, they would drift off shortly after dusk for roughly 4 hours, a period known as first sleep. Then, sometime around midnight, the entire camp would naturally and collectively wake up. They would remain awake for 2 to 3 hours in the dead of night. During this midnight window, their bodies experienced a natural surge of prolactin, a hormone that induces a state of calm, tranquil alertness. Far from being panicked, our ancestors used this midnight awakening to check the perimeter, stoke the fires, tend to infants, make love, and think deeply. After a few hours of quiet activity, they would drift back into second sleep until dawn. Because of this natural biological rhythm, a prehistoric camp was never fully vulnerable. Sleep was a dynamic, rotating state of collective vigilance rather than a state of total unconsciousness. The true catalyst for what humans did at night was the mastery of fire. But fire didn't just cook meat and keep leopards away. It actively rewired the human psyche and transformed how we processed information. Anthropologists conducting multi-year studies of surviving hunter-gatherer societies have analyzed thousands of spoken sentences and discovered a jaw-dropping cognitive split between day and night. During the day, over 75% of human conversation was purely logistical. It was about work, food procurement, land management, and tribal politics. It was cold, functional, and grounded in economic survival. The moment the sun went down and the campfire was lit, logistical talk plummeted to less than 15%. Instead, over 80% of the conversation shifted to storytelling, myth-making, singing, and performance. The physics of fire created a literal spotlight effect. In the dark, you can no longer see the mundane details of the landscape or the distractions of the camp. All you can see are the illuminated faces of your tribe against an infinite wall of blackness. This visual hyperfocus, combined with the dancing shadows, unlocked the human imagination. Around the nighttime fire, elders passed down ancestral histories, created origin myths, explained the movements of the stars, and forged religious beliefs. The night was the birth chamber of human art and philosophy. While the campfire provided a psychological sanctuary, it also made the camp a target. A blazing fire can be seen for miles across an open savanna or steppe. Therefore, the prehistoric night required a highly organized system of military-grade vigilance and acoustic engineering. Ancient humans didn't sleep in isolated rooms. They slept in a tight, defensive circle around the hearth. Because of the segmented sleep cycles, there was almost never a moment when the entire tribe was simultaneously unconscious. Younger hunters, whose biological clocks naturally run later, would pull the first shift, sitting quietly on the edge of the firelight. They would listen intently to the subtle soundscapes of the wilderness. Ancient humans could read the night air like a highly detailed topographic map. A sudden silence among the local insects, the distant, panicked alarm call of a baboon, or the low snap of a dry twig in the dark wasn't just background noise. It was real-time tactical data. If a predator was detected, the night watch wouldn't just scream and cause a panic. They would use specific, low-frequency whistles or rhythmic drum taps on logs to alert the camp without giving away their exact positions, allowing the tribe to wake up silently, weapons already in hand, ready to confront the threat as a unified front. When you only have a few hours of daylight, and those hours must be spent tracking dangerous megafauna or foraging across miles of hostile terrain, you cannot afford to waste daylight hours on mundane manufacturing. The night was when the ancient factories ran. By the steady, radiant glow of the coals, our ancestors engaged in meticulous tool maintenance. Hunters used the midnight awakening to straight taper spear shafts, nap fresh flint arrowheads by touch and sight, and bind projectile points to wood using boiled animal sinew and pitch resin. Women and elders processed hides, using bone needles to sew complex tailored clothing. Because working with dry leather is incredibly noisy and difficult, the damp, humid night air actually softened the animal's skins, making them much easier to pierce and shape without waking the sleeping children. The night was a highly productive time of physical preparation, ensuring that the moment the sun broke the horizon, the tribe was geared up and ready to strike out into the wilderness. We look up at the night sky today and see a faint smattering of stars struggling against the orange glow of city smog. Ancient humans looked up and saw a staggering, crystal-clear cosmic map of billions of burning lights stretching from horizon to horizon. They didn't just look at the stars. They engineered advanced systems of celestial navigation and timekeeping. By tracking the movement of constellations across the night sky, ancient humans created the world's first calendars. They noted that when a specific cluster of stars reached its highest point at midnight, it signaled the imminent migration of salmon up the rivers, or the exact time to move the camp before the winter blizzards arrived. They memorized the geography of the heavens so precisely that if they were caught out late on a hunt, miles from home in pitch darkness, they could navigate through trackless deserts and dense forests simply by aligning their bodies with the glowing geometry overhead. The stars weren't just pretty objects. They were an active survival interface. When survival moved from tropical savannas to the freezing tundras of the Ice Age, the night became a double threat: predators from the outside and lethal drop-offs in temperature from the inside. To survive nights that could easily drop below degrees C, ancient humans became master architects. They couldn't just build flimsy shelters. They constructed massive, highly engineered bone and turf fortresses. Across Europe and Siberia, they utilized mammoth bones, interlocking jawbones for the foundations and massive curved tusks for the roof arches, to build rigid frames. Over these frames, they draped thick animal pelts and packed layers of mud and turf. When winter hit, they allowed heavy snow to pack over the exterior. Packed snow is an incredible thermal insulator because it traps millions of tiny pockets of air, creating a massive thermal envelope. Inside these structures, they utilized cold traps. They dug sunken, subterranean entrance trenches that tunneled underneath the foundation, emerging upward through the floor. Because cold air is denser and heavier than warm air, the freezing wind rushing toward the structure would get trapped down in the low tunnel, unable to rise into the living space. Meanwhile, the light, warm air inside the dome remained trapped at the top, allowing fires fueled by fat-rich bone fragments to keep the interior at a comfortable temperature all night long. The echo of the ancestral night. Look at our modern night again. Think about why we gather around bonfires on summer nights, compelled by some ancient urge to tell stories, play music, and stare into the flames. Think about why your brain suddenly starts thinking deeply, philosophizing, or feeling a sudden rush of creative inspiration at 2:00 a.m. when the rest of the world is completely quiet. That isn't a glitch in your modern psychology. That is an evolutionary hangover. You are carrying the exact biological, psychological, and neurological framework of an Ice Age survivor. Your body still remembers the midnight awakening. Your brain still craves the intimate, creative spotlight of the campfire. We may have driven the physical darkness out of our cities with concrete, steel, and electricity, but the ancient, brilliant, storytelling spirit of the prehistoric night is still hardwired directly into our DNA.